Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hey, welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great guest tonight, Paul Benhaim, with Cannabis Psychedelics out of Australia. He's also been a pioneer in hemp medicine and CBD and hemp plastic all over the world. He's currently started public companies that are involved in both of those. But we'll be talking to him about his history. We have a couple of great year in hemp news stories. And as always, we will bring out our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
So we only have a couple of stories tonight for our hemp news segment. For the third consecutive year, researchers worldwide published over 4,000 scientific papers specific to cannabis, its active constituents, and their effects, according to results of a keyword search in the National Library of Medicine, PubMed.gov website. Despite claims by some that marijuana has yet to be subject to adequate scientific scrutiny, scientists' interest in studying cannabis has increased exponentially in recent years, as has our understanding of the plant, its active constituents, their mechanisms of action, and their effect on both the user and upon society. It's time for politicians and others to stop assessing cannabis through the lens of what we don't know and instead start engaging in evidence-based discussions about marijuana and marijuana reform policies that are indicative of all that we do know. Over the past decade, there's been a dramatic increase in scientific inquiries about the cannabis plant, with researchers publishing more than 32,000 scientific papers about cannabis since the beginning of 2013. Much of this uptick is a result of researchers' newfound focus on marijuana's therapeutic activities, as well as investigations into the real-world effects of legalization laws. In all, more than 70% of all peer-reviewed scientific papers about marijuana have been published in the past 10 years, and over 90% of this literature has been published since 2002. As of this writing, PubMed.gov cites 45,900 scientific papers on marijuana dating back to the year 1840. Available to the public online since 1996, PubMed is a free resource supporting the search and retrieval of biomedical and life sciences literature. You know, for all these years, a lot of the studies have focused on what's wrong. They're trying to find ills, and instead they found all these benefits. And we really need to study cannabis for cancer, as our guest Dr. Joe Goldstridge talked about recently. Our last story tonight is about Ohio. The approved legalization measure has taken effect. Provisions in Issue 2 in Ohio legalizing the possession and home cultivation of marijuana by adults took effect last week, 30 days after the measure was passed by 57% of Ohio voters. Today, for the first time since the adoption of marijuana federal prohibition, more U.S. citizens reside in jurisdictions where cannabis is state legal than live somewhere where it is not. The law allows for possession of up to 2.5 ounces of marijuana in Ohio and 15 grams of marijuana extract by adults. Adults are also permitted to grow up to 6 plants for their own personal use. As a cannabis freedom activist, I'm overjoyed that responsible adult cannabis consumers in the Buckeye State will no longer face the lifelong collateral consequences of low-level arrests and convictions. I'm further pleased that our political opponents have, thus far, failed to undermine the spirit of the law, which was approved by 2.2 million Ohioans. It's up to all Ohioans to ensure that lawmakers continue to defer to their constituents and allow the rest of this initiative to take effect as intended under the guidance of the regulators, stakeholders, and the citizens of Ohio. Immediately following last month's election victory, leading Republicans, including Ohio Republican Governor Mike DeWine and Senate President Matt Huffman, called for legislative reforms gutting core provisions of the initiative because the proposed measure was put before voters as a statutory question rather than a constitutional amendment. State lawmakers can amend or repeal its provisions. Then, on Monday, Ohio Senate leaders introduced legislation eliminating Ohioans' right to grow cannabis while simultaneously seeking to delay the adoption of Issue 2's marijuana possession laws. Among their changes, that plan was met with resounding resistance from voters, pundits, and members of the House leadership. Last Wednesday, members of the Ohio Senate largely reversed their position and voted in favor of substituting language preserving Issue 2's adult use possession limits and home grow rights, though lowering the maximum number of allowable plants per household from 12 to 6. Additional provisions in the bill established a process whereby Ohioans can apply to have past low-level marijuana possession convictions automatically expunged and expedite adults' ability to purchase cannabis products from existing medical dispensaries. However, other provisions in the Senate bill prohibit adult ability to gift marijuana to one another, amend tax rates, and impose a lower THC cap on marijuana concentrates, among other changes. House members refused to take up the Senate bill, however. Ohio House members are currently debating their own chamber's bill to modify certain aspects of Issue 2, the marijuana legalization bill in Ohio, but have indicated that they are in no rush to pass anything. Any modifying legislation passed by the lawmakers will not take effect until 90 days after it's signed into law. We've criticized Republican lawmakers in other states, such as South Dakota and Mississippi, for spearheading efforts to repeal voter-approved marijuana legalization laws. Ohio is the 24th state to legalize the adult use marijuana market, and it is the 14th to do so by a public vote. So now we have a majority of Americans who live in a marijuana legal state, and that's a big step forward. If you or a loved one, however, need help locating a doctor to get a state medical marijuana permit, give us a call. We have referral to doctors all over the country. Call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Without further ado, we'll go to our great interview with Paul Benhaim, and I remind you to work with us to restore hemp. Good night. I'd like to welcome back Mr. Paul Benhaim, who's down under in Australia. It's good evening here, but good morning there.
G'day to you, Paul, and everybody else listening.
So we're here today. You've done so much in hemp. We'll go into your history a little bit, but right now you're starting to work with cannabis as a psychedelic, and that's the name of your new business. It's Cannabis Psychedelics. You want to?
Indeed, it is.
About that?
Yes.
Is that on a website?
Yeah, the website is simply cannabispsychedelics.com.au, which is the Australian domain. It is a predominantly Australian-focused business at the moment, though it would be great to take it to the US at some stage should someone be interested.
Tell us about the how it works. I mean, it's there. You have a psychedelic cannabis, which
Yeah. Well, I think most people are probably aware that if you take too much cannabis, unintended, generally in a place that you don't know, you can have a slightly psychedelic experience. That's not what we're offering. We're offering a very intentional space to have a psychedelic experience. And that a psychedelic experience is led purely by the plant medicine cannabis. And it's a wonderful offering, I feel, after working with the plant for 30 years and having some of those kind of experiences when I was young. I never really considered making it a very intentional space. But about 4 years ago, I decided to work with psilocybin therapy Particularly, I started a business that was looking at manufacturing psilocybin, which it does today in Australia, to supply the legal market, as well as looking at clinical studies. And it was in the clinical study work of psychedelics that I met a number of wonderful doctors and scientists from around the world, and started to, I guess, look at experimenting with some of those psychedelics where they were legal. So I did some traveling, had some legal psychedelic therapy, as it was called, and reminded myself about how powerful psychedelics can be. And it was soon after that I actually learned that cannabis also could be used as a psychedelic. So I thought, wow, that's fascinating. I never really used it in that form. But since I'd studied the protocols and how people were to experience psychedelics, I thought, well, let's try that with cannabis. And I did, and I was completely shocked that I could have, what is pretty much well known as a psychedelic experience. Now, it's the word psychedelic, if you translate it back to its Greek meaning of psyche and delic or delica, it really truly means just mind manifesting, or what comes from the mind. Or being in a non-ordinary state of consciousness. There are a couple of ways that the scientific community usually communicates what a psychedelic experience is, and honestly, many things can give you a psychedelic experience. But I think a more realistic version of what a psychedelic is something that can take you, into an inner journey, maybe an outer journey. Some may say that to get outwards, to come inwards, to go outwards, so to speak. And usually with hallucinations, most psychedelic experiences have hallucinations, and most bring up certain memories or unconscious thoughts. And I know many people who have consumed ayahuasca, DMT, and then tried cannabis psychedelics with us now, who say they have not too dissimilar experience in terms of, they really do get hallucination of visuals and go inwards and have some amazing experiences when put in a correct setting. So, that is the main difference of, just, I guess, smoking cannabis at home or taking an edible, is actually taking it in a very much more of a ritualistic form. So what we do at Cannabis Psychedelics is we offer an experience that starts really with looking at our website, reading our frequently asked questions, getting a feeling for what it is. Then when someone applies, they generally, they will always go through a medical intake form. And that's been well designed to kind of see the conscious thoughts of somebody, as well as their medical history, to get, I guess, a picture of where they're coming from. We analyze that before we have an initial conversation or an acceptance of someone to come through this experience with us. And then it usually follows with a one-on-one call, usually with myself at this moment in time, where I get to know the person, and then we talk about intention settings. And ultimately, once we've dealt with their past, it's like, okay, why do they want to come here? Why do you want to have a cannabis psychedelic experience? And if it's just to get high, or just to have fun again, or just to experience something new for no reason, we'll generally push back on those kind of people and say, look, we prefer that you actually have a very clear intention. So whatever that intention be, maybe it's to understand a childhood trauma, understand why they're feeling anxious all the time, understand why they're dealing in having a similar kind of relationships in their life, understand where they're heading in their life, whatever it may be. And there's so many different things that people can be looking for in their life. And cannabis really works well at that. And the whole point is that it works individually. So it works from wherever someone is at. So we work out and we extrapolate where someone is at, what part of the world, their internal spaces, and where they want to look at. Now, that is then followed maybe days or weeks later, or not often, a long time goes by before they come physically, and it's usually physically, and I'll come back to that part in a second, but usually to my home here near Byron Bay, in a beautiful nature space where there's lots of trees and animals, and they come into what I consider a very ritualistic process. So they come, you know, with soft music in the background. They come with their comfort food. They come with their post-experience munches, and we prepare the space for them after. And then they enter the room where they will have this experience. We then talk about what's going to happen a little bit more, go through the process and set it up for them before we start with a ritual. And that ritual involves imbibing cannabis using the volcano vaporizer and flowers. So we pack the vaporizer with a bunch of flowers. They consume as much as is appropriate for that particular person. Again, it's quite individualized in that part of it. And then they go into their first hour experience. Now, it's generally a sound journey, which means that they will be listening to sound. I have a room with 5 speakers in it, and a very carefully constructed playlist of music. And that music is designed to touch that person in different ways. So what I mean by that is it's not like all the same kind of music, it's all different. There's gentle music, there's spacious music, there's intense music, there's black music, dark, heavy music, there's light, refreshing music. And it sends people in different directions purposefully so that they can relax to start with, and then go deeper within themselves. Generally, that experience is held with a face mask or an eye mask on that we provide. And generally, when they come to my home, it will be on a sound bed. So we've got a purpose-built sound bed that is actually designed in Colorado. And people lay on that sound bed, which is built of 4 different transducers, which is basically subwoofers that actually play the low frequencies physically through their body. So they're getting the sound through their ears, they're getting the sound waves going through their body, of course, but the sound lower frequencies being pumped through their body quite intensely. So that enhances the experience even further. But then we go even further still when we use particular terpene blends through an aromatherapy device, which is nano encapsulated, so without heat, so someone can absorb those terpenes through their nose and through their skin, which does affect the process and the feeling that people will have. So we use different terpenes for different parts of the journey to lead them through that process. And ultimately what we're doing is creating a safe space for somebody to have this cannabis experience. Usually we highly recommend and strongly suggest that they have a toilet break in the middle after that an hour and a half journey. And the main reason for that is to show them how one of the unique things about cannabis is that it actually has the ability to, you have the person actually is experiencing this, has the ability or agency to leave the experience, leave the psychedelic experience. Now, no other psychedelic that I'm aware of, you can have that ability. I mean, like, you're not taking in the middle of an LSD trip and said, I've had enough. Often people say I've had enough, but there's not much you can do just to turn it off. But with cannabis, you truly can. So you can truly leave the psychedelic experience and then come back into it as you will. So again, that's partly to do with setting. So we give them that experience, send them off to the toilet, show them that they just feel a bit high, and it's okay, make sure that they come back safely, and they sit on the sound bed again for another journey, usually with more imbibing of the cannabis flower vaporizer. And we'll have that experience again. We then leave them in silence to do some journaling, and usually that's when the kind of all those aha moments that they had in that experience get written down for themselves. They get to hold that to themselves. Then we have a mini debrief where we do as little as talking as possible because I want to leave them in that space to ensure they get all their thoughts out. And then they have some munches, snacks to ground them. Put on some more grounding music, usually go and walk out on the ground, literally, physically, without shoes on, so they can ground themselves, go and be in nature for a bit before they go home, usually for a great night's sleep. And then a couple of days later, we check in with them to see actually how they went and to see how they are integrating those experiences into their daily lives to support actual real change in their life. So we're not just here to give that mystical, wow, I felt one with everything experience, which is part of the experience, of course, but it's more to go, okay, and then you've got these insights, how did you integrate them? And sometimes people think they don't get insights, but when they're communicating, I mean, as an outside perspective, it's sometimes pretty simple to say, well, that was your experience. Do you see that? What you just said is very clearly an experience, and then a lesson for you could consider incorporating. And yeah, so far, so good. Like, everyone has had pretty much a life-changing experience of some form. And it's all been positive and often far more powerful than they expected through this process. So, you know, I started to do, and I've tweaked it a little bit, the protocols, and keep improving it. And I feel that, you know, kind of got to a space now where it's pretty stable, and their ability to work with people from different parts, coming from different backgrounds, we'll say, with different expectations of what happens. So, yeah, I guess that's a summary of what cannabis psychedelics is, as in what we do. Yeah, well, I'm doing it basically to I guess demystify the psychedelic experience, demystify the use of cannabis only as a pain drug, only as anxiety, only as a recreational drug. And it's you know, that plant is useful for all of those things and many more things, of course, as an industrial crop. But also as a tool, as a plant medicine to meet the spirit of the cannabis plant is really what this is about, and why I really love doing it. And yeah, working with some wonderful psychotherapists, psychiatrists, doctors, clinical pharmacists, a whole bunch of great people listed on our About Us page of the website, and they all become part of the team that has offered all these different aspects to make it, you know, a truly well thought out program. And I said earlier that it's not just at my home. You know, we are offering online experiences. You know, online experiences, you don't get to experience the sound bed, because unless you have one at home, you don't need to have that as an experience. I first started off without the sound bed. It just enhances it even more. But you can do it at home totally and all you need is a good set of headphones or a really good sound system and a room that you can close off and not be distracted or hear anything outside of that room, and a place where you feel safe ultimately. And I can then run those sessions in a similar way via Zoom. I can do that in person or in a group session. There's many opportunities and different ways that it can be run. With technology as well. Ultimately, I do prefer doing it one-on-one in person. It's more fun and it's more personable. I mean, it's still personable when you're doing it online, but it's a deep process. We give people online very much you know, all the time they need to speak still and to sit with them. Can still be totally present with them online. It's much better, I find, in person or on the screen if they can, but not everybody can. Some people are in the middle of nowhere and just can't travel, so it's a great option for people who can't do that. So yeah, that's a summary of what cannabis psychedelic experiences are.
I'm not familiar with the sound bed from Colorado. That sounds pretty fascinating. And how long is the total experience? You say after about an hour or an hour and a half, you try a bathroom break and then go back again?
Another hour or so, yeah. So the actual that day experience is 4 hours. You know, plus the call before, plus integration session after. So yeah, it takes a bit of time, and the timing really depends on where that person is at before and after the experience. Sometimes they need a little bit more time for integration, sometimes grounding. Sometimes, you know, I even let people stay here. I've got an Airbnb room, so you know, people sometimes just want to stay and not go back to their regular family daily life for one more night, just to integrate even more deeply their experience, and that's up to them. Most people do end up going home and quite fine. So yeah, you can do it in the morning, in the evening. It doesn't matter when you do it, but it is a 4-hour minimum experience, really, in person.
What part of Australia are you located in?
Byron Bay, really close to Byron Bay. I can oversee Byron Bay from where we live. It's a mid-east coast of Australia. It's the subtropics. It's 34 degrees centigrade, so I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. But it's hot right now in December, mid-December as we're recording this. And yeah, so Christmas here is on the beach kind of experience, very different. The opposite side of the world in the southern hemisphere. surrounded by koalas and trees and snakes and spiders and all those dangerous animals that you hear about in Australia are very real. Don't have them in my home, so it's very safe in the home. And it's pretty safe out of the home as well. I walk around bare feet in the garden, and I've only stepped on a snake once and didn't bite me, thankfully. Very just lucky. Yeah, beautiful part of the world. I really love it.
Paul, you have been a cannabis activist for a long, long time. When were you first drawn to cannabis?
I was first drawn to cannabis in the 90s, mid 90s, maybe 95-ish, when I was traveling in Asia. Huh?
You were in England then?
I was living in England at that time. Yeah, that's where I was born, went to school, and then I went to Asia soon after and ended up spending 10 years traveling around Asia, around the world really, straight away, leaving school, but studying food and nutrition along the way. And that led me to discovering hemp and hemp seeds and its nutritional benefits. And that led me to creating the first hemp food company in the UK, one of the first in Europe, one of the first in the world, actually. That became really successful. It took me to Australia to set up the same here. That took me 17 years to change the legislation, which gave me time to write 9 books on cannabis and hemp, and working in the building industry, the cosmetics industry, the food industry, the medicine industry, and what the psychedelic industry now, and obviously the bioplastics industry, which is kind of my big baby that on the side at the moment, which I'm still running very much. It's a US-based company, and we're expanding around the world at the moment to make hemp-based bioplastics. So that's really.
What's the name of your bioplastic company?
It's called the Hemp Plastic Company. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, people. And it's just hempplastic.com, and you can see all the stuff we do there. We don't sell direct to consumers or even to people wanting to make things. We usually sell our raw pellets only, to injection molders, to manufacturers. So so for people wanting to buy it in bulk. So we work with a number of multinational brands, and then we work with their OEM manufacturers who manufacture for them. To actually do trials and producing a whole bunch of different products, from cannabis jars and cannabis packaging to coolers, like esties that you can put in cold drinks and food, architectural sheeting, and many other things. So, but we don't produce any of those ourselves. As I said, we just produce the raw materials specific for those uses.
I see. Yeah, when I first became aware of you and we made contact, it was back in the mid 90s, 30 some odd years ago. And I bought a blue hemp plastic Frisbee from you way back when. Got that around.
No. I'm glad you have that. I have a red one on my wall. I don't have a blue one, so you got one of the rare blue ones. I don't have one of those myself anymore. So okay. Yeah, and we made some a couple of years ago again, some great ones. They're more advertising and promotional tools, just to give examples so people can touch and feel the material. And I've worked with 100% hemp material since then, and different materials of all forms. And it's been my honor to work with people. We employ 2 people from the plastics industry, one North American head of technical and chief operations officer. He's been in the plastics industry for 30 years. Our vice president of the APEC region, based in Southeast Asia. He's been in the plastics industry for 40 years. So, these are people who are really experienced with plastics, because I'm not experienced with plastics. I'm experienced with hemp and the supply chain, and I understand the technical parts of hemp. But that obviously has to be melded into a particular industry. So it's been really great working with experts in their own field to ensure that these uses of hemp can become very practical, because it's relatively easy to do it on a small scale. I'm more interested in doing it in a scale where millions of objects at a time are produced, and where we can supply in bulk in large quantities and sustainable and secure supply chains, so that we know that we can ship trainloads of our material around the world, around each country that we produce it in. So, which we can do today now. So yeah, we can produce about 14,000 tons right now in the US. We have capacity for, and we're continually expanding that, and looking to expand that globally.
You know, there are a lot of cannabis dispensaries where I'm at, and they're opening more and more of them across the country. Cannabis is usually purchased in pretty small quantities and
Yeah.
usually purchased in a little plastic container. There were
Mhm.
tubes, the little tubes for a
Yeah.
marijuana cigarette, and it seems like hemp plastic would be the perfect product for that.
I have just over the other side of my computer on my shelf there. I have some of those tubes made of hemp plastic. I have some of those jars made of hemp plastic. So, yeah, we're looking to get those out to the public as soon as possible. It's a really exciting time to see that change from fossil fuel to plant-based, and it's the same in all industries. It's like, you know, even in the therapy world, it's moving from synthetic to plant-based. It's in the textile world, using from chemical-based materials to plant-based materials that don't require so many chemicals and water. It's a really amazing opportunity for the world to look back at this, our plants in general, and this plant particularly is one of the most powerful, with so many different uses that are very real and very commercial. So that's what excites me about hemp and cannabis.
Well, the production of plastic from petroleum is highly toxic. Just the production of petroleum is highly toxic, but making it into all these different products is poisonous for all the communities where it's located. Um, Tell us about is your hemp plastic produced from hemp seeds, by oil?
Yeah, well, we can use any part of the plant. So we've developed processes to work with any parts of the plant. In fact, we can work with the waste materials from any part of the hemp industry. So even whether that's, you know, the marijuana production, where we take the extract waste and we can use that. Whether it's the seed production, and we take the seed waste. Whether it's the fiber production, we take the fiber waste. We've learned methods to basically incorporate all of these different forms of hemp into hemp compounds or composites, which is blends of materials. And the blends of materials and the formulations all depend on the end customer and what the end customer wants. You know, some want to focus on biodegradability, some want to focus on sustainability, for someone to focus on, you know, all plant-based, some want to focus on being UV resistant or fire resistant. So it requires all different formulations, and which is why, you know, to put that much effort into a formulation takes quite some time and some testing. So we only do that for larger corporations at the moment, but we do have a few standard offerings today. We use pretty much the regular equipment that the plastics industry uses. So we leverage that, which makes it more accessible to more people. More manufacturers can use this material. And one of the most important and benefits of using hemp plastic is the sequestering of carbon. So we try not to make biodegradable. We prefer sustainable. I mean, after studying that, I used to think that biodegradability was really important, and it's not a bad thing. But sustainability is more important, I feel. And you know, the challenges with carbon dioxide in the air, and actually having a method to store that in the material is a really wonderful opportunity for hemp. And the same is in the building industry as well. So both the building and the plastics industry with hemp both sequester a significant amount of carbon. So I'll try and turn something that is, you know, carbon problem to a carbon, you know, sink, which is a good thing for the environment. So it's really, really great to know that hemp can play a part in not just, you know, creating great product from a great plant, but actually looking after our planet for the future.
And it's not toxic at all, unlike the petroleum alternatives.
Hemp is not toxic in itself. No, that's correct. But you know, how it's used is up to different people. So you know, you can make anything toxic. You know, you can make water toxic. You know, if you want, you can do lots of different things. So you know, hemp in itself as a crop is an amazing thing. Even like I'll use an example, cotton is an easy example, because cotton is one of the most extreme plants, for example. So having a regular cotton material is actually one of the most damaging crops in terms of the amount of pesticides it uses. I think cotton uses 30 or 40% of the entire world's pesticides used in that one crop. But if you use organic cotton, it's completely the opposite, and one of the most sustainable textile crops that exist. But it costs a lot more money. So most people don't grow organic cotton, and it's really hard to get, so therefore it's really expensive. Whereas hemp generally doesn't need pesticides at all. So it's much easier to grow in that regard. So there's not much of a difference between organic and non-organic hemp. Though, of course, organic hemp ensures that your farmer is not using pesticides. And when it's coming from a country you don't know where, that is, of course, a risk as well. So, yeah, when you get into the details, it is all quite complicated, I'll say. But it's all very interesting subject, and ultimately it starts from a plant that is sustainable, grows great, it's good for the soil, uses less water, and has all multiple uses from one crop.
So I know it takes a lot of money to start a company, especially dealing with an industry as huge as the plastic industry. Is there an option if they want to invest, or what kind of opportunities would you steer them toward right now?
Yeah, so being a US company, we can't solicitate investments in the company. But since you're asking, I can let you know that, yeah, we're always looking to raise capital. Well, we're not always, but we are at the moment looking to raise capital. Maybe the time this is being listened to, we're not anymore. But we can only raise capital from sophisticated investors, which means that people with a high net worth who understand risks of investments, and that would go through a broker dealer, which we have some in the US. So, and there are definitely opportunities to expand what we're doing in the US and what we're doing overseas, to I guess bring ourselves into commercialization. The company itself has spent all of its time and money over the last 6 years, particularly in developing and securing intellectual property, which comes in the form at the moment of 34 patents or patent pendings. And we are looking to develop more of those as we go forward. So we've protected most of the intellectual property field around hemp plastics, not to stifle anybody else, but more so that we have a good, strong foundation so we can grow in a significant way without being threatened by anybody else. So we have a really strong foundation. We've had some great connections with multinationals, of which we're progressing a number of deals for commercializing our material at this time. And yeah, we're just literally on that verge of making probably a big success in what we're doing. So it's a very exciting time for Benhaim Plastic.
And the website again is hempplastic.com.
That's correct, Paul. Yeah.
And you also have been producing a very successful cannabinoid medicine. What's the name of that brand?
Elixinol. We were one of the first companies to produce the cannabinoid medicine, and that merged with my other company, Hemp Foods Australia, which was and still is the largest hemp food producer in the Southern Hemisphere, which both have been an amazing journey for me. So, that was a great journey. I took the company public very successfully, and then tried to step back from that. And in stepping back from that, found the corporate greed people who managed to, on the corporate level, mess around with the company, which brought me away from the actual operations, which sadly has reduced the effect of the company itself out in the world, in terms of its reach, and its production. But it still exists, still producing in America really high quality CBD based whole plant products, which is what it was developed for. Hemp Foods Australia still producing the best quality hemp foods possible in Australia. Hemp seed, protein, and oil as well. So yeah, both really proud little babies.
So you're producing hemp foods. Is it just the hulled hemp seed? Are there specific other foods like peanut butter, like hemp butter, or?
I'm not. I think we have a hemp butter. I think we have hemp seeds, hemp protein, hemp oil. We have a white protein that's really tasty. No green proteins. We have protein blends of different powders. We have oil capsules mixed with things like curcumin or turmeric and black pepper, and different formulations like we have in our CBD world. We've put regular plant or herbal medicines with CBD so that they can improve the efficacy and synergy between the two. So yeah, we've spent a lot of time formulating based on science with really great people so that we can produce the highest quality products. It's been a really interesting journey. But as I said, I've stepped back now. It's a public company. You know, I've let the corporate people take it over, where I have more agency myself to promote cannabis, which is you know, in its different forms as well as working on the corporate level with hemp plastics, which I couldn't have done if I stayed with the public company alone. So you know, it's going to continue without me for sure. I love supporting as many different new industries as possible. That's what I'm good at. You know, even though I've been working with plastics for decades now, this current iteration is only 7 years old, really. So for something that's going to be so big, it's still very, very early stages of its career or its journey. So yeah, it's a fun place to be in. From when we first started out in the 90s to now, it's like, you know, then all the things that we're doing now kind of seem like a dream. They were a dream then, and now they're pretty real. You know, I'm like meeting the largest petrochemical company executives looking to move away from fossil fuels into plant-based materials. I'm talking, you know, in public about psychedelic experiences and offering that to people. So it's a wonderful opportunity to realize all those things that we dreamt of 3 decades or so ago.
Well, you are in Australia. You want to tell our audience about the cannabis laws and its evolution there in Australia?
Yeah, Australia is very, very conservative, and it only legalized cannabis a few years ago, and at the beginning made it extremely hard to get. And before I talk about that, I'll give you an example, because psychedelics, Australia is actually the first country to federally legalize psilocybin, and then which sounds great, and everyone was really excited, and the government was able to put it in the news, and then everyone forgot about it. In the first 6 months, one person managed to get a psychedelic legally. So that's how Australia legalizes things. Yeah, it's legal. You just have to fill out 5,000 forms and pay $20,000 and get a psychiatrist to sign off on it, who has no idea what protocols they have to offer and write entire papers on it. So no one does that. So that's kind of how cannabis started at the beginning. Though I can say now, in the last couple of years, the industry has really taken off for the country. I think this year we've had around 400,000 scripts or prescriptions for cannabis given, which in a country, you know, obviously a tenth of the size of the US, you know, it's not too bad for, you know.
In Australia, it's a tenth, 30 million or 50 million?
Something like that, I think it is. I have to do some Googling to know what it is today, because it does change quite regularly, of course. So the Australian population is 25 million, right? In 2021. Still. So anyway, 30 million probably, 25 to 30 million, I'm guessing. So yeah, 400,000 scripts.
That's a pretty job.
Yeah. So it's growing, and it's on a very steep growth curve right now. And people are learning about cannabis and its use, and are starting to be easier to get a script for, starting to be less stigmatized and more understood that, you know, I mean, for me, the most basic thing about legalizing these kind of products is that if we don't, it simply stays underground and it stays illegal. And therefore that money gets spent in the black market with people who grow illegally, and we don't know the quality of those kind of things. Now, I'm not saying that everyone grows bad quality illegally and underground. Some phenomenal growers do it that way, I'm sure. And yet, if it's all above ground, all those people get to like live without fear and live without funding, you know, the bad things, and actually get to contribute to the taxes and the support of everybody as a society as a whole. So I think it's an obvious step to legalize cannabis in all of its forms, and all plant medicines ultimately in all of its forms, for us to make our own decisions on. I think we're all humans that can make our own decisions, and there are consequences to all decisions. And I think it's more about education. So rather than policing all these things, I'm not sure what the stats are about how many people were put in jail for cannabis. Certainly in America, I know it was a massive numbers in the past. I'm not sure how much it is now, but what a waste of money. It's still big.
Yeah, about half the country is still under complete prohibition, though there is a little bit of medical in most states now. But for adults, it's still. I think with Ohio voting to legalize marijuana last November, it got to the point where we're just over 50% of the United States population lives in an area where, once it's implemented in Ohio, that marijuana is legal for adult use.
Which is great. And I think, part of those taxes should be used on educating people to not only how to safely use cannabis, and that's kind of what I'm doing with cannabis psychedelics, is showing people how to safely use it and respect the plant, but also to understand what is good cannabis. Most people don't still, at least in Australia, don't understand the difference between good and bad cannabis. They think high THC or high CBD, that's the only difference that there is. When, as I'm sure you understand, it's far more complicated than that. And we're still learning, but we do know a lot more than that. We know that the terpenes offer different specific effects. We know that the esters make an effect on us too, and the combination of all of those things. And we know that there is not a sativa or indica plant that exists. And we know it's all of the spectrum, and it's just somewhere in between. And we know that you can have plants, medicines that make you feel up, that can make you feel down in your body, that can give you the munches, and everything in between. And if there was that kind of education, maybe people would be buying it more for what they actually need. And again, even with cannabis medicine, there's so many different uses of it, and because there are so many different types. So if the general public understood that, and not even just the general public, even if the doctors who prescribe it knew that, it would be a great thing. And that's one of the reasons I love coming to America, because the dispensaries that I visit, certainly in Colorado or California, and I'm guessing in Ohio too, or in Oregon, these places, most of the bud tenders do understand these things, and you can actually learn and ask what you want and experience that. And I think that's a really phenomenal improvement to how I grew up. And I'm not saying it's bad to have cannabis if you don't know what it's taking. I mean, part of the, I guess that the fun bit is that growing up with cannabis was like, you would smoke cannabis and you didn't know whether you were going to get put in your seat for the rest of the night, or you were going to be energized to go out, or you were going to get the munches, and it was kind of exciting to find out which one would happen to you. And I think that's okay occasionally. But to actually use it on a regular basis, I think it's phenomenal to know what variety you have, to know you have a clean variety that's completely ripe, where the trichomes, it was picked at the right time for the trichomes, and the whole plant has been really cared for, and it's not been overheated in a pipe, and you're putting it, ideally in a vaporizer or an edible, that you understand what that dosage will do to you. And that's a really awesome difference between how it was then and how it is now, or becoming now.
So you've written 9 books. Are those all on hemp food, or
they're on hemp foods? One on hemp building, one on hemp plastics, one on growing hemp, one on hemp cosmetics, one on hemp textiles. And then there's a few on hemp foods, and one cookbook as well, or 2 cookbooks actually.
Are they still?
I don't know if they are still in print. I've got a few copies left of my small modern introduction to hemp book, which was the bestseller. I think hempfoods.com.au at least sells them on the e-versions of those. And if people want an e-version of those, they can contact me through cannabispsychedelics.com.au, and happy to share or what people need. I'm not sure how many people read books these days, do they, Paul?
So it's hempplastics.com.au.
No, just hemplastic.com. Hemplastic.
Okay, but for the cannabis psychedelics, is it .com.au?
It is .com.au for cannabis psychedelics, because I was really focusing in Australia for cannabis psychedelics. Hemplastic.com is certainly a worldwide business, so that's why we secured that major domain name at the beginning.
Well, 9 books on cannabis is a lot.
Yeah, that's what happens when there's prohibition, and I couldn't change it in a quick time living in Australia. I had far more time up my sleeve to write books. I wrote business courses and supporting. I'm writing a course right now, a cannabis psychedelics facilitators training course. But these days, you don't do writing as much more than produce videos. So, produced, I don't know how many videos, but it's probably like 40 hours or so far of videos of education from amazing people around the world with their expertise, and you are one of them. So thanks for joining us in that hall. And there's a lot of other great people who are psychotherapists, all the different kinds of scientists from their particular field, as well as cannabis experts, all put together, all supporting, I guess, why and how the protocol to run a cannabis psychedelic experience is run. Because there's a lot of thought behind it. Yeah, you can go do it in your own home if you want, but there's, I guess, risk to that can be mitigated when you really understand it. So, yeah, we're offering that for it's around about $2,000 US for a 9-month course to learn everything you want on facilitating those experiences, so you can offer it in your own home. So. That will be available to anybody they want from February 2024. So,
I think that's possible. Here's what I've heard. Here in Oregon, we've legalized psilocybin assisted therapy, and I think the people who go through that training are paying multiple times more than that.
Well, exactly. Well, an actual therapy session is a VIP experience of 4 hours is $1,000 Australian, which I'm not sure is about $700 US for basically 5 hours of time. So, which is significantly less than psilocybin therapy, and that's part of why we're offering it, is to make it more, psychedelic experiences more available to people, and that's why I'm training people all over the world now, because I want people to be offering that experience, and I don't want to take money from everybody. I want everybody else to take that experience and create their own businesses, because I think these kind of experiences should be shared. And you can do this anywhere where cannabis is legal to consume, and in the private space. So again, as you say, it's 50% of the United States can actually do this kind of work today.
What kind of progress is being made toward cannabis legalization in Australia?
Well, there's lots of talk about it. There's a lot of talk about it. Not really much action on it, to be honest. There's no. I think the people who are lobbying for the petrochemical pharmaceutical industry, still doesn't want to see cannabis too widely available, because they've seen it happen around the industry, particularly because we've seen when cannabis gets legalized, alcohol sales do go down dramatically, and pharmaceutical sales go down as well. And those are two very powerful industries. So they have every reason to not want to see cannabis being legalized yet, until they see who the winners are and buy the winners, basically. And that's kind of what happened in North America. We saw a bit of that happening with companies in the tobacco and alcohol industry buying up cannabis companies. And I think that's the reason why we're still seeing delays here in Australia for recreational, and even the people in the legal industry don't want to see that as well, because it hurts them. But the way I see it is, like, why shouldn't people be able to grow a plant that they're legally able to consume right now? So right now we're allowed to legally consume it as a medicine. Why shouldn't we grow it? And when people say, the bigger companies saying, well, we don't want to grow it, we want to make, we've invested so much in this business. Well, tomatoes are legal to grow, and there's still big tomato trade in the supermarket, and I can grow it really easy in my back garden. Does everyone grow it? No, because most people don't want to grow tomatoes. But for the people that do, shouldn't they have the ability to? I mean, well, can. It would be crazy to outlaw the growing of tomatoes. So why is the outlawing the grow of cannabis? I mean, it's the same thing. There's really no difference.
It's money and power and the centralization of economic and political control. You know, when I first went to a marijuana legalization protest, it was just a week after my 18th birthday. It was at the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. in 1978, back when Jimmy Carter was the president. And at that time, the consensus was marijuana is going to be legal in 5 years. Well, we didn't foresee, the backlash and the Reagan just say no era here in the United States. So I can relate to how you moved to Australia thinking, hey, you'll be able to legally develop these foods. And it wasn't until 17 years later that you were actually able to go forward with it. So these social changes are take a lot longer than we anticipated when we were younger, you must admit.
Yeah, and in these days, I don't know how much time we have. We need to make these changes quickly. In Australia, I know, for example, like over nearly 50% of people, sorry, it's 40, I think it's 44 point something % of people in Australia have a mental health issue that they see someone about in their lifetime. So that's a lot of people. So supporting those kind of people, we need psychedelic therapy. We need cannabis for all of the different uses it has. Today, we don't have 17 years to wait for people. So I'm glad that it is available as a medicine legally today, and I'm glad that we can offer cannabis psychedelic experiences. And I look forward to the time where people can grow it in their own homes. The main reason I want to be able to grow it in my own home and not just buy it as a medicine is so I can make sure I get the best quality product. I reckon I can grow better quality than I can get access to on a script where I can't even see or taste or smell the product. I mean, it's crazy. So
as long as you have good genetics, then you can grow things that probably will be better than mass-produced craft cannabis is what we're talking.
Yeah, and it varies. I don't want to generalize, of course, but anyway, there's definitely improvements that could happen in legislation in many different forms. So yeah, it's exciting times in some respects. It's changing, and we've still got to do the work. So if people are listening to this and wanting to make a change, then I say don't wait for people like me or Paul to do that. Come and get involved. There's plenty of opportunities out there. This is going to change. It's just a matter of time, and the more people that get involved, the quicker it's going to happen. So if you believe in this, please come and make that change with us today.
Amen. I can agree with that. Well, I've got Paul Benhaim, a longtime pioneer in hemp plastic and hemp food and hemp medicine, and now cannabis psychedelics. So I guess you can go to cannabispsychedelics.com.au in terms of reaching out to you directly. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing, Paul?
I'd say simply that cannabis makes common sense. So get involved with this industry today. Talk about it with your friends. Share this information. Share this video. Share, because we're all in this together. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good day.